And this was one of the first superstars from Japan, Kenji Shibuya.
You know, we talked earlier about how after World War II, promoters recognized that they could play off the sentiments of the fans, and many people were still in their hearts fighting World War II. We were at war with Russia, Japan, and Russia, as I mentioned. And one thing that Greg and we discovered when we were talking, Greg and I actually attended our very first wrestling match, not together, but we were there for the first time for the first match. And that was in 1957. This man was part of the main event. He was teamed up with his partner Mitsu Arakawa, Japanese team, against two hated Russians.
And that's Mitsu right up there.
And we're going to talk about Mitsu in a moment. But they were battling the Kelmakov brothers, Ivan and Kirill. In those days, Greg, they pronounced his name Ivan Kelmakov. Somewhere in the 60s, it got more Americanized and it was Ivan. But it was Kirill and Ivan Kelmakov. And I attended that. That was my first live match that I remember.
Mine too.
And I remember sitting at ringside. And I remember I was like 6 years old, just going on 7. And I remember how loud the auditorium was, how they were booing for both teams. And I said to my dad, "Why do they hate all these guys, Dad?" And he said, "I don't care which one of them win. I just want them all to kill each other." And of course, my dad, you know, coming from him, but he didn't like the Japs, as they were called in those days, and he didn't like the Russians.
And they almost killed each other.
It was a bloodfest.
Oh.
And on that particular night, Mitsu and Kenji did win, just for that one time. Those are stories that we'll talk about too.
I was fortunate that my dad took me down to the locker room after the matches, and of course in one locker room was Arakawa and Shibuya, the other one was the Kelmakov brothers. And as I walked by and I looked in and I saw blood all over the Japanese wrestlers, blood all over the Russian wrestlers, and I turned to my dad and I said, "Dad, one thing I know for sure is I never want to be a wrestler." It was the most brutal match I'd ever seen in my life. And to this day, we both still